and welcome. Today we're going to travel back in time with the Victorians with our time traveller. And I'm going to teach you all about how the Victorians lived. The Victorians had no electricity, so they had to use candles to see their way through their house and around about wherever they wanted to go in the dark. And some people that were rich had oil lamps, but the oil cost a lot of money. People had to go to work, only kids though. When they were 4 years old they started work. And they had to work really hard at these places, and they could have cut their fingers off. But that was because they had to go under sewing kits and things that could break their fingers off because of their mums and dads had to work as well, because if they were poor they had to get more money. But if they were rich they got to go to school and they were allowed to have pianos and toys. But pianos were like 10p, which is actually kind of a lot of money. Well, it was a lot of money because of the people that were poor. But when people after the Victorians, when Queen Victoria died, people made money a lot less more, and they made pounds for many more times. Pounds is what we have now. They didn't have pounds though back in the time of the Victorians, because Queen Victoria was very, very, very nice, and she wanted money now that was not much to us, like 10p. 10p's not a lot now, is it? No. But Queen Victoria wanted that to happen because it's a bit better, because they wouldn't have to pay for lots of things, the poor people. And the poor people were very, very poor, and the people that had to go to work and their mums, they left their children on their own when they were babies with their big brothers or sisters. It's quite mean, isn't it? But really, that was how it went. And some babies were sick and they had to be left alone with their big sisters or brothers. And the clothes were really, really dirty. But that was only because, well, the poor people had really dirty clothes, but the rich people had beautiful hats and dresses. Not like what we have now. They were much better than what we have now, but we're lucky we don't have them now, because one thing, they would cost a lot of money, and second, it would take hours for us to get dressed. Actually, the Victorians were very not lucky at all. And their irons had to be dipped into boiling water, because they didn't have an electricity, so they couldn't power up the irons. So the irons had to be, well, they had two, and they dipped one into the water and left it there whilst the iron was the other one. It was very dangerous because the boiling water could have burnt their hands, and they could have burnt them off. But the water was temperature like, I'm not sure I know my temperatures, but it was really hot and it could have burnt anyone that touched it. So they had to be really careful. But But when Queen Victoria was still alive, a person invented electricity. That was just after she died, though. And the person that invented electricity when the new people arrived. And the new people were the inventors of many, many things. Like William Henry Fox invented special pictures for cameras. And he invented them with this very special paper. And he managed to put rocks and leaves and held them and left them there for a few days under the light. And what happened is when he took them all off, everything, you could see the outlining of the picture. So he had invented pictures from cameras. Their cameras back in time were really big and heavy. They were about that wide and that like that. They were massive. They were really big. I saw a picture at school. And one of my school friends, she brought in a stamp she had found when she moved into her house that obviously a Victorian had left there when they lived in the house before they moved in. And that was quite special because when my friend brought it in, everyone, even I, was staring at it. And it had her address on, so obviously it was an office. Moving on, and sugar, we get little sugar blocks, don't we? But the sugar that they had was that big first and that wide first. And it was really big. So they used sugar cutters, which were these things, and they had like grips, and then they opened and closed and opened and closed on the sugar. And the sugar crushed and crushed and crushed and crushed and crushed until all of the sugar was just sugar, plain sugar in bowls, and they put it in packets and people bought it. Sugar was quite a lot of money. It was like 10 pence, as I told you, it was a lot of money. And when they went to bed, the toilets were outside. So when they were in bed, they used these chamber pots, and chamber pots are like toilets. They're little, a bit like bowls with handles. And in the night, even Queen Victoria had to get out of bed, and underneath their bed would be a small chamber pot. They were a bit like potties, and they had to wee in them, and in the morning they had to go out and empty them. It's quite disgusting. I wouldn't like to do that. And we're very lucky that today we have toilets. This is all I have for you today because I've only learned this much about what at school, because I still go to school. But I'm doing this because I really wanted to. Okay, this has been Documentary About the World, and good night.